This is the Self-Aware Leader Podcast. Now your host, Jason Rigby.
We are going to get into intergenerational leadership. So I want to talk to some of you about connecting with and leading older team members. Maybe some of you are older and you have a younger leader. You're going to learn about this, and you can even take the opportunity to share this podcast with them. If they're a brand new leader and you're trying to mentor and help them, this is something that's amazing. But if you're a young leader, because I went through this, and this is tough. I was in my early 30s, and I had to lead 60-year-olds, and it was tough. I'm telling you. But I didn't understand and know. One, I didn't have the patience. Two, I was just all ego, very, very, very much ego, just constant ego, feeling threatened by them all the time. And some of you may be in this situation right now. And so my whole idea was like, if I could have fired the people, I would have fired them and just hired younger people so that I could have had my ego flexed, and it would have been nicer for me short term. Long term, I would have lost a lot of valuable wisdom. And eventually I got to know them, as you do. You know, you end up hating somebody. You don't like them when you first meet them. Oh, that person's an asshole. They need to be da-da-da. And then you start getting to know them. And then next thing you know, you're like, I kind of like them. They're kind of smart. They do really good with this, and this. This is important because whenever you look at the older generation, you have to understand their perceptions, their reality. And this is a big deal right now. I mean, you have people like canceling their grandparents and everything else. I mean, young people, we don't, no matter who you are, whether you're 75 or you're 25, you don't have all the answers. We're learning constantly. So there's really no right or wrong, but it's depending on the circumstance and what you can learn from it. So if you're a brand new leader, don't be threatened by older team members. And I'm going to share some information from life experience to help you out. And I hope that you will listen to this and put these things in practice, a daily practice. Write these points down. So I want you to get a pen and pad. I'm always talking about this, self-aware pad. I'm going to create one, get it out, and I want you to take some notes like you're in school. Take some notes, and then take these notes, type them out in a couple bullet points, and then put them where you can see them so that you can focus on it. You just won't forget. You can focus on it, especially when you're having issues with older team members and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to lead this. And like I said, I'm going to share some of the mistakes that I made, and then I'm going to share some of the wins that I got and how I learned to be able to lead older team members. And if you can do this, I'm telling you, sky's the limit for your leadership. So age differences, they are a challenge. And it seems intimidating. And I think that's the first thing. Your ego is intimidated by somebody you feel is smarter than you, or you feel that may be wiser than you. And then on top of it, your ego likes to play title games. Well, why aren't they a leader? Why am I in charge of them? Well, they must not be that good or that wise. Some people, you have to always understand, some people like to be a specialty in one thing, and they like to do that. My grandfather spent like 50 years at the post office, wore out the marble where the window was at the post office because he just enjoyed talking to people that came into the post office. He liked being at the same place, and he liked doing that. He had no desire. Multiple times he was asked to be a manager at the post office, and every single time he turned it down. He had no desire to be a leader. He just wanted to, at work, whether he was a leader at home or whether he was a leader with his children, you know, those are all different things and maybe some people like to be able to have a comfortable 9-to-5 job that they do the same thing over and over again because they're more focused on things that are work is not as important as maybe their hobby, or it's not as important as maybe their family. And so they want to be able to have the max time off. And if they're a manager, they're not going to have that. So you need to understand that just because a person doesn't have a title doesn't mean that they're smart or not smart. I've met a lot of people, young and old, who had amazing titles and were idiots. So don't seem intimidated by age. Don't seem intimidated by them in a meeting speaking out. You've got to understand decentralized leadership, and this plays more than anything. More than anything. Now, this happens all the time in the military. What do you mean, Jason? You get a brand new officer in his 20s that comes into a platoon, and in the platoon, you have sergeant majors, you have staff sergeants, you have all these NCO leaders that are way older, and they have to listen and recognize that the leadership is that young officer that came in. And this happens every single day. And sometimes you have asshole officers that don't care about anyone. All they do is care about their career. Or sometimes you have amazing officers that lead amazingly. So let's get into this. And I want you to get this point, especially when it comes to intimidation. It is essential to remember that effective leadership transcends age. It is essential to remember that effective leadership transcends age. So let's get into these tips and strategies. So first, you have to recognize and respect experience. Older team members bring valuable experience and insights to the table. And this is where it's important to have, if you're a young leader, the younger you are, the more important this is. You need to have a round table, and you need to include these people in the decision making. They should feel like together they're making the decisions. This is something that I didn't do. I felt like I needed to be very forceful and be authoritative and tell these older people what I was going to do so that they would be, fear me and be like, yeah. This young person knows what they're doing. They even stood up against me. It's not us versus them, guys. If you recognize and respect their expertise, and you make an effort to learn from their wisdom, and you show genuine interest in their perspective, and you constantly involve them in the decision-making process, you win. Right there. Dun, 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 done. So let's break these down. Recognize and respect their expertise. This is you constantly asking them. Go overboard. Even if you feel like you know the answer, you ask. Because you probably are going to get something that if you really pay attention and you do active listening, I have a podcast on that, and you truly learn from their wisdom, you're going to get a whole different perspective, and it's going to make you a better leader. Show genuine interest, and then involve them. It's this simple. Let's do it this way. So let's say you have a team of 10, and 3 of them are 60 years and older. And everybody kind of looks up to those 3. One of them's kind of crouchy. This is real world right here. We're going to be real world. One of them's kind of crotchety, really smart, kind of knows what they're doing, but kind of negative. The other 2 just have been there a long, long, long time. Well, you're the leader. You're in place. So now you're going to have a meeting. You bring them in, and you have a conversation with them. I would have a meeting before the meeting. This is where you got to get away from doing tasks and spend most of your time with your people. And you need to delegate your tasks so that you can spend optimal amounts of time with your people. Have the meeting before the meeting. Have a conversation with each of them individually. Because guess what's going to happen? After they get to the meeting, they're all going to talk. And they'll come into agreement with it. So you have a conversation with all 3 of them. And then you have a big meeting. And then you make the decision. But you ask questions and then allow them what they're going to do. If you do this right, and it's not that hard to do. And I had to learn this. They're going to back you in front of everybody else, and then you got automatic buy-in every single time. And I always would take their ideas and make sure I gave them credit for it, but use them. Say, I was talking to Bill, and he came up with this really good idea, and then I was talking to Teresa, and she's been here for, 30 plus years, and we were talking about making this change, and she said it would actually be better this way, and I 100% agree with her. I appreciate the insight, Teresa. And you say that in front of the whole team. So this is where we're going to go. You don't have to be the person that gets all the credit all the time. I have right in front of me a marble plaque that I got from the Ronald Reagan Library in California. This is what it says. I have it sitting right here. There's no limit to what a man can do or where he can go if he doesn't mind who gets the credit. Ronald Reagan. Love that. There's no limit to what a man can do or where he can go if he doesn't mind who gets the credit. Give them the credit. I always give everybody the credit. I never take credit for anything. The more I realize as a leader, the more that I don't need to. I always give credit to whoever. If I'm having a meeting, I'm a chief marketing officer, and I'm with the CEO, the CFO, the CEO, the CTO, and we're all having a meeting. I'll say, this team did this. These 3 people were exceptional and got this done. I never say I got anything done. I always praise my employees to the C-suite. And you guys should be doing the same thing. It's not making, if your ego's going to be like, well, you need to take the credit. No, don't do that. It just makes you look like you're narcissistic, and it makes you look like a better leader because the other leaders are taking credit for everything, and then you're including and giving credit to your team. So guess what's going to happen? Especially if you're middle management, they're going to see you're an effective leader and you're working for, and your people are being outstanding. And your department's doing well. They're going to see this. So let's get on to the next one. But let me say, involve them in decision-making process. Please do. Emphasize collaboration and open communication. You need to encourage open communication. Not for them to bitch. If they start bitching, so let's say you got the old guy, Bill, he's the old guy, he's been there for 30 years, like we had talked about, and he's a bitchy one. You need to ask, Bill, I understand. This seems like it's a problem. What would you do after he bitches? Let him bitch. Just listen. What would you do to correct this? And then say, do you think that we should come up with something? Maybe you could write some things down or send me an email or whatever about some of the things that we could change, and I will go and see if we can make those changes. That's and especially if they're, even if you take maybe 5 things that he wrote, 3 of them were for like better employee welfare or something like that, where they get more time off or something. You may not do those, but the other 2 may be valid. So you may not do all 5, but if you get 2 done, you could be like, Bill, we got these 2 things done. So, I appreciate this. I made sure I let everybody know these were your ideas, and that everyone's voice is heard. Always make sure that everyone's voice is heard. Let people share their ideas and opinions. That part of you who's wanting to cut people off and talk, that's your ego. Be self-aware enough to recognize and be like, no, that's not the real leader. That's not me. That's my ego trying to be protective, and I'm threatened because everybody's agreeing with this person. Dive down deep. Say, just stand there while you're listening to them. Correct yourself. It takes 2 seconds to correct yourself. Make sure everyone's voice is heard. By fostering a collaborative atmosphere, you will demonstrate that age is just a number. And what truly matters, get this, guys, is the ability to work together effectively. That's what you want as a leader. Now, I want to talk about confidence and being assertive, because there's a right way and a wrong way to this. Sometimes you're going to make a decision and people are going to test that decision, no matter if they're 20 or 70. But you need to stand firm in your decisions. A decision, and I've said, is just a pivot, right? And you can pivot away from a decision. Stand firm on that decision that you made, then turn around and say, that was step 1. Now we're going to do this for step 2. And when you do get feedback and you need to make a correction, don't say the decision was bad, because in the meantime, with the limited information you had at that point was all that you had. And then you've moved forward, got more information, got more data, and you need to pivot and you need to make another decision. Decisions aren't set in stone. You're just putting the ball in the court. Just think of that. I'm the point guard. I have the basketball in my hand and I'm going to throw it in court to begin the play. But a foul could happen. Lots of things can happen. And then we pause the game. We figure out a new play, and then we go back in. So stand firm on your decisions and let people know decisions. We're evolving. We're adapting. Decisions are going to evolve and adapt all the time. We have to be fluid. Just because we say this is this, and this has to be this, especially when it comes to like systems, if it's affecting like HR, like employee morale and stuff like that, then you want to kind of be firm on those decisions, not constantly changing. You don't want to creep. But if it's a system and you're like, hey, we made this decision together, standing pretty firm on the decision, but we need to make a few corrections in it. So we're going to pivot. Step 1 was we got this done. Now we're adapting it, we're evolving, and we're going to make the decision even better by doing this, this, and this. Do you see? It's just adjustment. That's all it is. Just adjusting. You don't have to tell people, I've seen this too, and this is so narcissistic. It's like, I really made a bad decision. I can't believe that I did that. And then you like beat yourself up for 10, 15 times, constantly, and then telling the same story over and over again. Especially, I hate leaders that bitch about themselves and bitch about upper management and bitch about everything else to their staff and then wonder why their staff doesn't want to work. Wrong. Don't ever do that, especially with older people. If they've been there way longer than you, they're loyal to the company. All you're doing is, in their mind, is that you're this young leader that's frustrated and that you're probably going to leave. They're not going to give you buy-in. That's the worst thing you can do, is try to get on their side by being bitchy with them. Look how it happened. If you want to read a great story, whether you believe in it or not, go to the book of Exodus and read the getting out of Egypt and the Israelites and all that. That'll give you a lot of what happens in these certain scenarios and how the good things and the bad things that Moses did as a leader. Next, focus on building relationships. This is having lunch. Don't have lunch alone. I say this all the time. Building strong relationships with your team members is crucial regardless of their age. Make an effort, guys, to connect with them on a personal level. Maybe you can go fishing with them on a Saturday morning for 4 hours. Maybe you can go watch them. Maybe they coach a game, and so you're going to go watch them coach a game. Maybe you invite them out for a couple beers on a Sunday afternoon to watch the game. Maybe you have a UFC fight for a Friday night, and you invite everybody over, and you just have a big party, and you grill, and servant leadership. You're just serving and showing, and don't care who shows up, who does, who doesn't, who cares. Or show up later. You can show up anytime, from 5 in the afternoon till 10 o'clock at night. Show up anytime. Some people, they're late, so they decide not to come. Be flexible. Who cares? Maybe they want to go out to eat, and then after they go out to eat, they're going to stop by for drinks. Have them bring their spouses, their partners. Encourage that. Because what you want is to get to know these people on a personal level. This bullshit leadership that you should just be professional all the time and who cares about their personal life, you're just focused on when they work, that never works. Every great leader I've ever known has showed genuine interest in me personally. They found out a ton about me. You should have a CRM, or every time you find out something new, you should put that in the file of that person. You should have their hobbies, what they love. Oh, I didn't know that about you, Bill. That's awesome. You like to go shooting on the weekends, and you go shooting every Saturday with this shooting group. Or Susan, you're in bowling? We should have a bowling outing. Susan, could you set that up? Let's all get together and bowl. I think that'd be awesome. I'll pitch it, see if they'll pay for it. We can do employee bowling in an afternoon or an evening or something like that. If they can't pay for it, we can just all, pay for a little bit. I'll pay for some of it. We'll figure it out. But Susan, do you think that you could set that up? She'd be like, yeah, I'd love that. That would be awesome. And then we're off. And then you go to Susan's file and write down that she loves bowling and where she bowls at. Get that information. You should have, like J. Edgar Hoover had in the FBI. If you guys haven't heard about that, it's crazy with the stuff he did. He had a file on everyone, and it was detailed. And I'm just making a joke. I'm not saying get that detailed in their personal life, but you should know their birthdays. You should be sending a text on their birthday. You should tell them happy birthday if you see them that day. Invite them to lunch is even better. Send a text that morning, and you can have calendars remind you of all this. Say, hey, Susan, happy birthday. Really appreciate you. Appreciate what you're doing at work. If you have time today, would love to be able to have lunch with you. If not, I can just order you something, but I think it's really important. Set up a cake, have a little tiny cake, have somebody in charge of that. Your social media manager or somebody like that can be in charge of that. Post a picture of them online and put happy birthday to da-da-da. You can't do enough of that, guys. You cannot do enough of that. That creates bonds that last forever. And I've told you this before. I've had people leave the organization and come back. Because, there was more money somewhere else and the grass looked greener, but they didn't have the culture that we had, and they just wanted to come back. And they're like, this is my home. This is my family. And it feels so freaking good as a leader when you hear that. You're like, yes, what I'm doing is working. I'm creating an environment where people have the opportunity to love each other, and I as a leader have the opportunity to love them. Yeah, I like to use the L word. As a leader, your role is to guide, support, and encourage your team members. That means Be available to provide assistance when needed. Let them grow as a person, as a human. Recognize and celebrate their achievements. Everyone who doesn't want to feel valued and appreciated. Name somebody. Even Bill, the honorary guy that's been there for 30 years. If you recognize and celebrate his achievements, you find out his anniversary and you don't say anything, but you find it out. You go to the HR department, find out when he first started, and it's April 17th. And April 17th, you know it's coming up in a couple months. So you do an anniversary cake and have an anniversary lunch for Bill. Bill will be on your side forever. Everyone wants to feel valued and appreciated. Make people feel valued. They're valuable. The biggest ROI you're going to get, even for the bottom line, is your people. They're the ones that are scaling. They're the ones that are you're dishing off all the projects and the tasks to, and they're 10Xing you. Make them feel valued and appreciated. Not just so that you don't be manipulative. Do it because you're genuine. But I guarantee you, if you make people feel valued and appreciated, the outcome is going to be way more than you could ever imagine. Whenever I see the bottom line failing, a lot of times it's because of bad leadership. John Maxwell, my favorite quote, everything rises and falls on leadership. I love it. 100% responsibility. It's all me. When my department's doing bad, it's on me. Be a lifelong learner. Embrace the opportunity to learn from your older team members. Approach your leadership role, get this, with humility and a growth mindset. If you don't know what humility is, look it up. If you don't know what a growth mindset is, look that up. There's books on it for growth mindsets, and recognize that you too can continue to develop your skills and knowledge. And this attitude of having a growth mindset, always learning and having humility, and humility, I need to make a whole podcast on humility. Humility is not what people think. Humility calls out the wrong. It stands for things. It's not just humility where you just be passive aggressive and give in all the time. And I'm super humble and meek and I just walk around. I don't want to tell anybody what to do. No, humility, look it up. You need to understand humility to its fullest. And I'm going to do a podcast on leadership and humility pretty soon. This attitude will not only benefit you, but also set a positive example for your team. Leading people older than you is rewarding and enriching experience. And I guarantee you, if you focus on this, it's going to make your leadership 10 times better. And you'll learn collaboration, you'll learn how to communicate, and you'll learn relationship building. And if you can overcome age-related challenges and you create a harmonious work environment and it's productive, you are so empowered as a leader to do whatever you want to do and go wherever you want to go. Because this is a key that unlocks a door. So be self-aware about it. Guys, before we close, I want to share something. I'm working on this project of creating community. It's a paid community, but it's going to be inexpensive. It's a monthly, and we're going to be able to talk and share. I'm also going to have some personal coaching because I've been doing that for a while. So if you have a leadership problem or leadership questions, we're going to have that. We'll also be together in a Zoom call. And you guys can, you just log in on your phone or wherever, and there's going to be a bunch of little squares, all of you guys, a bunch of little squares, and listen, and we can ask questions, and we can learn from each other. So, and I want to share like coaching, because everybody keeps asking me about, how do I coach people? How do I do that better? So I kind of want to make a course on that, and that will be on there. But I want to make everything affordable so that if you're a brand new leader and you don't have a lot of money, and if you're a seasoned vet, then you're going to get a ton of value out of it. And there's also where if you want to schedule coaching times and stuff like that with me, you can do that. But I encourage each of you to look at that. I'll be sending some emails and I'll be talking more on it. But appreciate each and every one of you. Be a self-aware leader.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Aware Leader Podcast with host Jason Rigby. We hope this episode has inspired you to unleash your full potential and embrace your inner leadership. By expanding your consciousness, you can transform your mind, body, and soul and become the remarkable leader you were always meant to be. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with your loved ones and help us expand our community. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you join us again on the Self-Aware Leader Podcast.